Standing up all flat, playing shitty country music. They forgot about the hag. Well, don't you think it's time we all got downright mad? Let's take our country back. Well, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that's just what'll happen if you rob me to get a fix. No, I ain't messing around. I got no problem putting shitheads down. Let's take our country back.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. This week, Farmer Joe's has fresh local strawberries, $1.99 a pound, or local grown broccoli crowns for $1.99 a pound. You can pair that with boneless pork chops for $2.99 a pound. Everything you need and more. Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. I want to welcome attorney, businessman, political analyst, Mr. Ford O'Connell to the show. You can find him at FordO'Connell.com, Ford O'Connell on X, and commentating on most credible news sources, TV, radio, print. Listening to Ford is time well spent. I'm Smoking Joe, and welcome to Cracker Culture. Ford, Nikki Haley seems to be oblivious to the fact that Trump is basically destroying her in every state. I have a clip, and then you can make some sense of it.
When it comes to South Carolina, look, we wanted to be strong, and I think we started with 2% in Iowa. We ended up with 20%. We got to New Hampshire. We needed to do better than that. And we did. We got 43% of the vote. Now we're going into South Carolina. We need to be stronger than what we did in New Hampshire. And so that's certainly what we need to do. But it's not just that we need to be stronger, Kristen. Trump needs to be stronger. He's not getting the independent vote. He's not getting a segment of the Republicans. And so he's got some work to do as well.
Let me just make sure we get an answer, though, Ambassador Haley, because this is your home state. You were governor in the state of South Carolina. Do you need to win your home state in order to stay in this race? Is it do or die?
I think I need to do better than I did in New Hampshire. So this is a building situation.
But
it's not about which state you get and which state you don't.
Do you need to actually win? I hear you saying you need to do better, but don't you need to win your home state to show that you can win a state, win your home state, and really put some delegates on the map for yourself?
I need to show that I'm stronger in South Carolina than New Hampshire. Does that have to be a win? I don't think that necessarily has to be a win, but it certainly has to be better than what I did in New Hampshire, and it certainly has to be close. And so that's what we're focusing on. If we win, great. If not, we've got to show that we're continuing to narrow that margin along the way.
So I hear you saying you are in this regardless of the results in South Carolina through Super Tuesday. It sounds like just yes or no. Are you in this race through the convention beyond Super Tuesday? Yes or no?
As long as I keep growing per state, I am in this race. I have every intention of going to Super Tuesday. Through Super Tuesday, we're going to keep on going and see where this gets us. That's what we know we're going to do right now. I take it one state at a time. I don't think too far ahead.
Now, Ford, I agree with her. She don't think too far ahead. She should have done bowed out. What's your take on what Nikki's saying about her campaign?
Look, some people can't take a hint. Nikki Haley's on a political suicide mission. Barring catastrophe, Donald Trump is going to be the Republican presidential nominee in 2024. Here's what I find so ironic. She likes to play this little game and the media plays along. She says, well, as long as I grow better like I did in Iowa and New Hampshire. Here's the problem. She was governor of South Carolina. She's losing to Trump by 30 points in the state where she was not only governor, but how's she going to grow? The people of South Carolina already know who Nikki Haley is. And frankly, they're telling you straight up, her own people say, we want Donald John Trump. So look, why is Nikki Haley staying in this race? I only see two reasons. One, she thinks that something's going to happen to Trump. And I'm here to tell you nothing's going to happen to Trump. Number two, she's trying to hurt Donald Trump and help Joe Biden. So basically, Nikki Haley is out here burning Donald Trump's resources and money because she's trying to help Joe Biden. That's not what a Republican does.
Well, and I also believe that if if it's not in a closed primary, that Nikki is probably going to get a lot of votes from the Democrats that supported Joe Biden because she more aligns with his ideals than any other candidate I've seen.
Well, that's exactly right. And remember, in Iowa and in New Hampshire, it wasn't a closed primary. In South Carolina, it is not a closed primary. It's more of a hybrid primary. In Super Tuesday, 11 of 16 are semi-open or open primaries. Remember, before we get to South Carolina, next week, there's going to be a Nevada caucus, and Donald Trump is going to win 100% of those delegates because Nikki Haley's not even on the ballot. Nikki Haley, because of a situation in Nevada, is running in the Nevada primary, which gets no delegates. And right now, polling shows that none of the above in terms of candidates on the ballot is beating Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley is getting crushed everywhere.
Well, and she made a comment, too, that he's not getting some of the Republican votes. He's not getting the Libertarian votes. But I've talked to several Libertarians, and they are definitely more pro-Trump than anybody else right now.
Well, but how can they not be pro-Trump, particularly when Joe Biden's essentially taking away their rights, taking away their ability to think, taking away everything that they hold dear? At the same time, though, I don't know how she keeps saying this stuff about independence and everything else. Let's go back to Iowa. Donald Trump smashed the record for margin of victory in the Iowa caucuses. Then he went to New Hampshire and got the most votes ever in a New Hampshire primary, regardless of party. So for her to say that Donald Trump isn't flat out crushing it is unbelievable. Further, if you go to odds makers, okay, odds makers right now, online odds makers will tell you that Donald Trump has a better chance of being the Republican presidential nominee in 2024 than Joe Biden does of being the Democratic presidential nominee, and the Democrats have canceled their own primary.
Well, you know, Donald Trump seems to be polling phenomenally in the swing states. I want to look at the latest poll numbers and discuss what an epic position he has for it. Let's take a look at this.
Meanwhile, President Biden hit the trail today to meet with a key Democratic voting bloc, union workers, in a key battleground state, Michigan. That trip comes after a recent set of polls from Bloomberg News and Morning Consult showed President Biden trailing former President Trump in Michigan and virtually every other battleground state, though some are within the margin of error. In a sign of the political peril facing the president in Michigan and beyond, his visit was preceded by demonstrations calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, led by a group called Abandon Biden.
In this area, 8 out of 10 Arab and Muslim voters voted for Joe Biden. Obviously, Joe Biden does not represent those people anymore.
Look, even the least likely people that you would expect to vote for Trump seems to be coming around because they see that Joe Biden is not only is he an ineffective leader, he's ineffective to basically stand up for any community, let alone other than the far left psychos. He's not really supporting anybody.
Look, I think you're absolutely right. Let's take a step back for a second. In 2024, there will basically be 7 states that will decide who the next president of the United States is. They are Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin in the Midwest. They are Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Nevada in the Southeast and Southwest. This is Michigan, okay? And right now, Donald Trump is leading in Michigan by 5 points. Let me give you an idea of what that means. Never in 2016, when he won Michigan by 11,000 votes, was Donald Trump ever leading in Michigan. In fact, I don't think a Republican presidential candidate has led in Michigan in the 21st century. Further, when it comes to these 7 swing states, Donald Trump is leading in every single one of them, which would put him in the best position polling-wise in a swing state of any Republican presidential nominee in the 21st century. I wish the election were today because Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Biden has blamed Republicans in Congress for not allowing him to shut down the border. I'm going to play a clip, and this is the most ridiculous thing I think I've heard Biden say. Well, one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard Biden say.
Is there more you can do? Absent
I've done all I can do. Give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got in office. Give me the border patrol. Give me the people, the judges. Give me the people who can stop this and make it work for us.
That is US President Joe Biden insisting that he's done all he can do when it comes to the border crisis. Since Joe Biden came into power, it's been chaos at the southern border. The number of people crossing into the US has reached record levels, more than double in the Trump years. And it's led to a growing humanitarian crisis at the border. Now Joe Biden, who campaigned in 2020 to end the harsh practices of the Trump administration, wants Congress to grant him the power to shut down the border in order to contain one of the largest surges of uncontrolled immigration in American history.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. And Congress needs to get it done.
Components of the deal include a new authority that allows the president to shut down the border between ports of entry when unlawful crossings reach high levels. Also, reforming the asylum system to resolve cases in a shorter time frame and expediting work permits. Aid to Ukraine is also a sticking point tied to the deal, which Democrats say is critical for Ukraine to defeat Russia.
As Biden campaigns for a second term, many voters claim that immigration is their top concern, which is hurting the president in the polls.
This is the number one issue in America. Americans want a secure border. If Joe Biden federalizes our National Guard, that would be the biggest political blunder that he could make. And that's why I think he will not do it. That said, of course, I am prepared in the event that they do make such a blunder to make sure that Texas will be able to continue to secure our border.
The matter is that when President Trump was in the White House, he secured our border. He started building a wall. He had policies in place that didn't create the chaos that we're seeing today. So you can say a lot of things and talk a lot of talk, and U.S. senators are really good at spinning a story to make themselves look good. What I would say is that I always look for someone who's willing to take action. And President Biden has all the authority he needs to take action today.
Look, I have to realistically, I can't express enough how much I really respect Governor Abbott and Paxton for standing up and not giving in to the Biden administration. We have a trucker convoy that is going down to Texas to help support Abbott, and they're coming from all over the United States. This being said, wouldn't the people like Mayorkas and your border czar Kamala Harris and all the folks that are supposedly taking care of the border, what more does Joe Biden think he needs when he has actual citizens, actual people on the ground willing to go up? And these ain't military people, these are truck drivers. When is he going to learn that we've got the people to shut this border down? All he's got to do is shut his mouth.
Well, let's start back under Joe Biden. Okay, we know that this is the worst border crisis in U.S. history. Let's remember that this was not inherited. Joe Biden created this. Okay, and what's even worse is he has the power to fix it. He just chooses not to do it. And I think it's very, very important that people understand the following thing. The worst December under Donald Trump, we had 50,000 illegal alien encounters at the southern border. Last December, the last numbers we have, December 2023, 302,000 under Joe Biden. Nothing has changed. Joe Biden has the exact same power as Donald Trump did. Congress didn't pass any law for Donald Trump. The difference is he doesn't have the will to do it. And further, down in Texas, Joe Biden went to the Supreme Court to undo border security, okay, and Eagle Pass, Texas. That's unbelievable. The man does not believe anyone is legal. And the problem is, it dates back to something you said earlier. His policies are so crazy. The Democrats' whole plan is, well, we're crazy. We're outdated for the American people. So we're just going to import new voters. And that's what's happening here. And this border bill that they talk about in the Senate, the fact that the media is being so disingenuous when they push this and saying, well, gee, if only they would give him the power. The whole thing is complete and utter nonsense. What's crazy that they don't tell you what's being proposed on Capitol Hill. Now, the final bill hasn't been shown. What's being proposed on Capitol Hill is that Joe Biden doesn't have to deport anyone until you have 5,000 illegals into the country each day. That means that Joe Biden is trying to normalize 1.8 million illegals into this country every single year and wants Congress to give it the stamp of authority. This is absolute insanity all around, and the media is lying to everybody.
Well, and I did see not only Byron Donalds, but I also seen Ted Cruz saying one is too many. We can't have a limit to so many a month or whatever a day coming through. But it's not what Joe Biden seems to be going along with. And plus, to wrap the package up in more Ukrainian aid, when we just found out that I think it's like over $40 million that money's been stolen by the Ukrainian elite.
Well, that's exactly right. Here's why you're getting some Republican senators like Mitch McConnell of Kentucky talking about, oh, we need to pass this border bill, which, of course, Joe Biden just loves to hear. It's because he's more interested in funding Ukraine than he is in protecting our own border. There are a whole bunch of Republicans in the United States Senate that are complete and utter sellouts. That's why I hope that Rick Scott eventually becomes the Senate Majority Leader, because Mitch McConnell is selling America out for global interest. I mean, Chuck Schumer's got, they always say Chuck Schumer's got 99 problems, but one of them ain't Mitch McConnell. And that's the unfortunate part. I think a lot of senators in the United States Senate that are Republicans have forgotten who they represent, and that is the American people and definitely the constituents of their state.
Well, you brought up Rick Scott, and like I said, I like Rick. Now, he's done a few things over the years that I might not agree with, but at least it seems that he's stepping up and trying to help do the right thing for the American people in general, not just for Florida. So you got to give Rick Scott a little bit of credit, because he's spearheading a lot of things that other senators won't do.
Well, that's exactly right. And two of the things that he's looking at is the border. You know, he's very much like Ted Cruz, but you've got Ted Cruz out there saying it, so you don't really need to overlap. But the other thing that Rick Scott recognizes, that even our governor, Ron DeSantis, recognizes, which very few Republicans truly recognize, is how dangerous the Chinese Communist Party is to America. And frankly, it amazes me that, you know, I always have a bet. Whenever China becomes the topic, say on Fox News, I flip a coin and argue who's going to get to the TV set first, Rick Scott or Marco Rubio. It's always a question, because when it comes to China, it seems to be that the only delegation in this country, from top to bottom on the Republican side, that understands what a threat China is the Florida delegation. That's a testament to Rick Scott, Marco Rubio, Byron Donalds, etc., Greg Steube. But, you know, more people need to see this and understand that, yes, their job is to represent Florida, but they also have to think about America, and they're all right when it comes to the border and China.
Well, I've noticed that a lot of black constituents have started to shy away from Joe Biden after they're seeing how their economic lifestyle is changing. But the one thing is the Teamsters union. Trump spoke with the Teamsters, and even though they've supported Biden in the past, Trump believes he has a chance to sway them to his side. And I want to play a little clip on that.
We had a very strong meeting with the Teamsters. Over the years, I've employed thousands and thousands of Teamsters, and they've done a great job, especially in New York, where we have a lot of unions. I've had great relationships with the unions. We're with Sean O'Brien, as you know, and Fred Zuckerman, and they're terrific people, great leaders, actually. And I think we had a very productive meeting. Stranger things have happened. Usually a Republican wouldn't get that endorsement. For many, many years, they only do Democrats, but in my case it's different, because I've employed thousands of Teamsters, and I thought we should come over and pay our respects. You know, it's interesting. We just had a meeting with the Teamsters, and one of the biggest problems they have is millions of people are pouring into the country. And that's a killer for the Teamsters, and I'm going to stop it. And that's why the Teamsters, I think, support me. Now, I don't know if the top people will support me. We're going to have to find that out. But within the union itself, I have tremendous support.
The only realistic possibilities out there is whoever candidate supports our issues is going to get our endorsement. If we're not confident in any candidate, they won't get any endorsement. Look, there's no question. There's no question the Biden administration has been great for unions. But again, sometimes dialogue helps formulate difference of opinions that will be favorable to unions and positions moving forward. So that's what our goal is. Again, we're not looking at what happened in the past. We're looking on what's going to happen in the future.
Well, Ford, I mean, do you think the unions will actually back Trump over what's typically been a Democratic supporting party?
Well, let me say this. Good on Donald Trump for going to Washington, D.C. earlier this week to talk to the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. The last time a Republican presidential nominee won the Teamsters endorsement was 1988. Now, let's be clear why the Teamsters matter. It's very smart for Donald Trump to be seen as being friendly because, remember, we talked about those 7 states where it matters. Well, the Teamsters are about 13 to 15% of the voting population is in Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. So this is very smart politically, but also if you're a union member, let's be honest, who's better, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? It is a no-brainer for your thing. Donald Trump held inflation in check. Donald Trump held the border in check. Donald Trump is holding China in check, and Donald Trump is unleashing American energy. Unfortunately, Joe, I think the fix is in, and eventually the Teamsters are going to endorse Joe Biden because they're going to cut a backdoor deal. And that said, when I look at all of the major private sector unions, the AFL-CIO, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the United Auto Workers, the one union that should have endorsed Donald Trump is the UAW, because remember earlier, last year when the auto workers decided to strike, the reason why they struck was because of Biden's policies, pushing electric vehicles, getting those parts from China, harming American energy. I mean, if any group ever should have endorsed Donald Trump, it was the United Auto Workers. And guess what? The fix was in there. Sean Fain, the president of the UAW, decided to endorse Biden. The reason why is very simple. The Democrats are circling the wagon because they're looking at the polls, and they are literally at DEFCON 1 about how bad the situation is. They're waking up to the recognition that Donald Trump very well could be the 47th president of the United States. I will say this, though. When there's the leaders that endorse. Now, remember, they have very powerful get out the vote efforts to help turn the votes out. I am willing to bet in those states that I just named, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, I'm willing to bet when it comes to private sector unions, more than 50% actually vote for Donald Trump when all is said and done.
Well, and here's the thing. I've never been pro-union, so to speak. I understand in some bigger companies, especially up north, maybe the union's needed, but it seems that, not saying that they're not intelligent, but a lot of people that are in these union jobs are very blue collar. Politics is the last thing they want to talk about. They only want what puts more food on the table.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true when you look at the Teamsters and United Auto Workers. I think one of the unions that you and I are not a fan of for sure is the teachers union. Come on, we saw what they did during COVID. Not only did they lie, they stole taxpayer money and basically paid themselves. Teachers are good people, but the people that run the teachers union are criminals, and everyone needs to know that. But when it comes to these other private sector unions, I mean, I feel for the United Auto Workers, because if you look at what Joe Biden's policies are doing, he's trying to eliminate cars, combustion engine cars and trucks in the United States of America in favor of Chinese-made electric vehicles that no one can afford and don't work when it's cold or too hot. So why on earth would you ever do anything so stupid? But Joe, I give you Joe Biden.
Well, like I said, I wasn't going to say much about the teachers union, but I don't think that even the teachers realize they pay their dues to be in these unions, and the best I see is they get a 3%, 8% raise, and the powers that be that run the union are making way more than the teachers will ever dream of making.
Well, I think a great example of that is Randy Weingarten. She should be thrown in jail. I mean, she has destroyed the learning of our children for at least 2 decades because of the nonsense, shenanigans, politics she played during COVID. It's truly unbelievable. Because remember, the Democrats always say with education, give us more money and we'll make things better. Well, we gave them a heck of a lot of money. You know what the problem is now? 8th graders are reading at a 2nd grade level. Nobody could do math, and we're going to get crushed by the Chinese because we're no longer teaching the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. We're talking about politics and gender identity, which equals absolutely nothing in the workforce.
No, I agree. Well, this next story, I want to warn people. This is a very brutal attack. And I'm going to play a clip where a brutal attack on New York police officers and lawless illegal immigrants have seemed to be free from punishment. But I want everybody to see exactly what happened.
New this Wednesday morning, we're learning 5 people have been arrested and charged in connection to a vicious attack on 2 NYPD officers. We must warn you, the video you're about to see is hard to watch. NYPD officers on 42nd Street, just off Times Square, were attacked and beaten when they tried to arrest a group of men. The officers thrown to the ground and brutally kicked and punched on their head and body. The attackers then taking off towards 7th Avenue. Those officers were treated at the scene. Some of the charges on the table do include assault on a police officer and gang assault.
Now, my understanding is they've captured some of these guys, but they turned around and released them.
That's exactly right, because of the social justice George Soros DA. There should never be bail because it pits the rich against the poor, and it's unfair. So let's get this straight. 5 illegals who shouldn't be in this country beat up 2 police officers in New York City in front of everyone and on tape. They were arrested. They were immediately released. And then when they asked the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, should these people be deported, she could not definitively say yes. This is who the Democrats are. Not only do they put average Americans last, they are actually putting now law enforcement last. And we all know if you don't protect the blue line, the men and women of the blue line, guess what? You might as well have flat anarchy. And I'm going to tell you something else. It's not just Joe Biden, and it's not just New York. Earlier this week, 150 Democrats, which is in the United States House of Representatives, which is basically 2/3 to 3/4 of the Democrats in the House, voted against federalizing a bill that says if an illegal immigrant commits Social Security fraud or has a DUI, they should not automatically be deported. See, remember, a lot of people say, well, you have to have humanity. Well, at some point, when is someone a criminal? If you're not going to deport criminals, then the terrorists are going to have a free-for-all. And this is what Tom Homan always talks about. This is why we're so close to the next 9/11. I hope it doesn't happen, but Joe Biden's inviting it.
I just don't see how it ain't going to happen with all the illegals, the few illegals they're catching that have terrorist backgrounds coming across the border. That don't say nothing about the ones that's made it across the border with intent to harm America. But as you said, Mayor Fogel, I mean, here's my question. If I was either one of those 2 officers, I would have used lethal force. Why did they not pull out their weapon and end this situation right there on the scene? I wouldn't have cared. I would have went center mass on all 5.
Well, yeah, this is the deal. See, in New York, they've been changing when you can actually engage. And this is why you've had such a drop-off in police officers in New York City. Not only are they handicapping them about what they can do with illegal immigrants and lawbreakers and bail reform and jeopardizing and put them there, then they say, essentially, if you use deadly force or you use force to protect yourself, you could then wind up being the criminal and the defendant in these cases. I mean, that's the whole point. That's why these officers most likely basically sat there and took the beating, because if they shot anyone or they missed one of them in Times Square, I mean, the Democrats would put them on front page for being war criminals. I mean, that's how sad it is.
And the truth is, they claim these were Venezuelan immigrants. They wouldn't have got away with that in Venezuela.
They wouldn't have gotten away with it, Joe, anywhere in the entire world except in the United States of America and except of a sanctuary city like New York City, where they do not value American life, human life, or the lives of cops.
It's just incredible to me, because I know me personally, I would have took the charge if I would have been one of those police officers. I don't care if I'd have had 100 of them down the street. Somebody kicked me in the head like that. I don't care if you're an immigrant or whoever. You kick me in the face like that, and I've got a weapon, I'm going to discharge that weapon, and I'm going to go either center mass or for a headshot.
You're absolutely right. And let me tell you why this is going to continue to happen in places like New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, etc. And the reason is very simple. I used to work in 2 prosecutors' offices, including the Los Angeles, California. And I will tell you, if there are no consequences for bad behavior, you only embolden criminals to do more. And other criminals are saying that and saying, hey, if these 5 guys aren't getting in any trouble for kicking in the head of 2 cops, why the hell am I going to actually listen to the cops either? And that's why this is a bad, bad situation, and it sets a bad example. And remember, people will say, well, that's just New York City. That can't happen in Fort Myers. Don't worry. Crime spreads. Crime is a capitalistic endeavor. When it sees that something ain't working over there, it is going to continue to spread. And this is how New York City's laws are harming Florida and Southwest Florida.
Well, I had an incident happen last weekend here on my property, and I got 3.5 acres out here. My daughter's 5 years old. She had a little friend that was the same age over here spending the night. There was 3 dogs. One was like an Irish wolfhound, one was a pit bull, and one was like a husky or something. But these 3 dogs come on the back of my property and chase my 5-year-old daughter and a friend up on a trampoline. Well, my wife come out and tried to run them off, and they tried to attack my wife. I went out and I did chase them off, but I made a post and said, look, if you value these animals, they come back on my property, I'm going to dispose of them. And I wouldn't care if it's an animal or a human being. If my property, my family's in danger, the first step I'm going to take is protecting myself and my family.
Look, I'm a dog person, and you're 1,000% right. And that's the whole point of the Second Amendment, is to protect your family, your home, and your property. And you are completely right in this situation. And I'm glad that you did warn people, because dog owners need to understand that there are consequences when you're not a good dog owner. And unfortunately, that's the case. I'm a huge dog person, you know me, but you got to protect your family, and you're absolutely right, Joe.
Yeah, well, we're big animal people, but the flack I got back, overwhelmingly everybody agreed with me, but I did get a little flack we'll call animal control. Well, I'm going to tell you, I called animal control. Animal control is short-staffed, and I live in a rural area, okay? Animal control, by the time animal control could have got here, I could have had a hold up. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm not.
Look, you're right. We've seen this across Florida, whether it's gators, whether it's water moccasins. People are like, oh, you got to wait for animal control. Hell no, because it's endangering my family. I'd love to wait in a perfect world, we'd all wait for animal control, and we try to make sure the animal's protected. But sometimes you got to make a split decision. And if the animal rips off your daughter's leg, you can't put that leg back on. So you actually have to make that decision. And I've had the same problem with snakes and bufo toads, and it's unbelievable. Like, well, you can't harm the bufo. Damn right I'm going to harm the bufo toad if I have to.
And my point is I don't care if you're an animal or a human. I'm going to protect my own, and I can dig a ditch for a human just as quick as I can for a Irish wolfhound. That's all
I'm sure you're going to get some lovely hate mail from PETA after this discussion. But hey, you're not wrong, my friend.
Well, Ford, it's about that time that we all look forward to. It's time for
man's trash.
Now, today on the man's trash, there's a lot of things that I want to discuss, and for reasons we can't discuss, but I am concerned that state lawmakers have lost touch with what is important to the citizens of Florida and especially Southwest Florida. Now, as far as this affects all of Florida, the Civil Justice Subcommittee voted to advance House Bill 757, which would make it easier for public officials to bring defamation lawsuits against their critics. This vague censorship bill undermines decades of Supreme Court precedents. The ACLU has expressed opposition to this bill and its companion bill, SB 1780. This bill targets the First Amendment for protections outlined in the Supreme Court in New York Times versus the Sullivan case. The bill seeks to undo protection and decades of precedent by infringing on the free speech of people who criticize or comment public figures on the matter and of public importance. House Bill 757 threatens both of these freedoms. This is going to affect people like me. It's not going to affect the wealthy. It's going to affect small-time journalists, small-time podcasters, because they have hurt feelings. And I know a lot of people is going to jump on board and file these frivolous lawsuits. And our state legislators are seeming to do more and more to open up the door for frivolous lawsuits and not protecting the people that actually voted them in to protect us.
Look, what makes the United States of America unique from every other country in the world is the First Amendment. And the basis of the First Amendment is that its citizens should challenge its government and feel safe in doing so. I'm very, very concerned that in Florida, we seem to want to limit debate. We want to limit criticism. This is a government by the people, for the people, not a government that is meant to control what you can say about those who control your life. That is the bedrock of our constitutional republic, and I'm very, very concerned that Florida is trying to limit this freedom. And let me say something real quick about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. This used to be a great organization, and somehow in the late 1970s, they lost their way, and they forgot what was good for the goose is also good for the gander when it comes to rights. The ACLU lately is a terrible organization, but they are absolutely right in this case.
And I know a lot of it was deemed for social media protection for children under the age of 16 and things. And I do think we need protection. But the fact that I can't come out and speak my opinion on some of the political candidates, especially in Lee County, when we know that your vote doesn't matter. Everything is any candidate. Well, let's say the majority of candidates is placed. They're not elected. You can go vote all day long, but if they're not being managed by TM Strategies or Ballard and Associates and Dane Eagle and some of these other establishment hacks, your vote don't matter anyway. They're going to put them in there. So I think we were to rename SB 1780 is to the state bill. We were to call that the sissy bill because you're too coward to take questions or listen to what the people has to say when they really think that you're worthless.
Yeah, and look, we see this at a micro level already where they're canceling public comment in some of these school board meetings, these city council meetings throughout Southwest Florida. Look, it's bad enough in Southwest Florida that we canceled primaries, okay, so that people can be appointed. Now the idea of canceling free speech for the citizens to talk back, to push back, is absolutely insane. Let me say something else, though, about this sort of social media and people under the age of 16. I actually agree with this. I think it will be overturned by the Supreme Court because of the First Amendment. Well, to your point, the reason why I say that is, I look at people under the age of 18 with very different rights than people over the age of 18. And unfortunately, when it comes to social media, the best way for me to explain it to everyone in terms of the harm that it's causing to those between the ages of, say, 12 and 17 is it is digital fentanyl. And people say, well, hey, parental rights. I'm all for parental rights, but no parent can monitor what their kids are looking at in today's day and age when it comes to social media.
I agree 100%. And that's the thing. We do need to step up more as parents and start looking at these things in a manner where, you know, morals have gone out the window, the things that you see on social media. And like I said, I see things and I'm shocked it's even on social media, but it's allowed. And I'm like, huh. You know, and I try to block it or just not pay attention to it. But my thing is this is going to not only eliminate your freedom of speech, this is going to eliminate your freedom of expression, your freedom of creativity, any satire. I mean, this is going to go down in history as the worst thing anybody's ever done. And it, to me, is the most communist thing I've ever seen, for you to stifle people to be able to say what they want. We have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. Why on God's earth would we be taking away what our forefathers has fought for? And that's what our country is based on. Why?
My advice to the Florida legislature is proposing this bill, get some thicker skin. Because if you can't take the heat, it's time to get out of the kitchen. And look, you know, one of my good friends, Trey Radel, is hardcore about protecting the First Amendment every which way possible. And, you know, he's been really against the idea of this defamation, you know, because look, once you're a public official, you basically can't be defamed under our laws because you are a known entity. And you have to be very, very careful, because the last thing I want to see with these defamation suits is a Morgan & Morgan racking up legal bills and giving the trial lawyers more money that don't deserve it.
Well, and another thing, like I said, even being a commentator, a podcaster, we get a lot of flack. I mean, I get a lot of things. I mean, the Long Island Leaks like to come out and call me Cracker Barrel Joe and things. I don't take offense to it. It just shows that I'm renting space in his head. So I don't mind.
You should see the hate mail I get, my friend. A lot of them are real close to death threats.
Yeah, and you know, and that those things don't bother me. I know where I live. I know that when I go out in a setting that I have private security, I know that I have protections. I don't care what you say. What's the old word? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. Well, you know, like I said, I just don't understand the cowardness in these bills. And here's the thing. It seems like that Governor DeSantis wants this bill worse than anyone.
Look, I don't know what our governor's motivations are, but I think he really needs to think this through, because that's really pushing the slope towards socialism. Because remember, you could have things like this that may come from good intentions, but it's going to lead to your point, some very bad things. And I think this really needs to be thought through. And I remember they were pushing this, I believe, last session as well. And then all of a sudden it got pulled. What changed between now and then?
Well, they just kind of rewrote it a little bit, but in my opinion, the way they reword it makes it worse. But, you know, here, I don't understand why that somebody, you know, like that. This goes back, it's like Trump calling DeSantis the sanctimonious. That would be illegal under this bill.
I understand. They really need to think this through, because this is very, very dangerous what they are proposing, even if they argue it comes from a good place.
Well, I just got a lot. I'm just going to say this right now. I'm not afraid of getting sued, and any of these sissy politicians that want to sue me for our content, you know, line up. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, no matter what the bill is. They'll have to incarcerate me for it.
Well, I hope we're speaking only for you on that one. But yes, no, look, I agree with you. And you got to defend the First Amendment, even when it's things you don't like. And I think that's the biggest problem in America. That you hear it all the time. The Democrats want to censor speech left, right, and center because they want to censor speech they don't like. Let's not be like the Democrats and start censoring speech we don't like just because now all of a sudden we control the levers of power of the government. Let's be better than that.
Well, it's definitely not a conservative view in my opinion.
No.
Well, I want to talk about one of our favorite senators here is Senator Jonathan Martin. Now, he's proudly put a post out the other day about all the bills that he sponsored here in the last week or so. One of the bills he's sponsored is SB 1530. Now, this bill would require the homeless people to have a permit. And, you know, I got a, you know, right there he says, unhoused in Florida, you might need a permit to sleep in public. I have a little bit of an issue with this because, first off, there's a lot of people that are homeless not by choice. And Jonathan Martin's statement, and I know a lot of other cities are doing the same thing that what he's proposing, but his statement was, and I quote, those people who are sleeping in the park and doing so because they made choices that everybody living in a home has not made. Well, look, I'm going to call bullshit on that, Jonathan, because first off, there's a lot of things people lose their jobs. There's a lot of reasons why people would not, because they weren't hard workers. They didn't try to save. They've had medical issues. And like I said, I got a call from somebody that actually, and I'm not going to put it out there, but this person actually works in the school district here in Lee County. They've been homeless for several months now because they can't get ahead. First off, this person works in transportation, which is not a high-paying job in the system. And, you know, once you get where you've lost something somewhere, whether it's a medical bill or the housing market has raised up to a point where you can't afford it and you got to find something else, who's got the time to go apply for a damn permit to be homeless? That's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I mean, I was starting to kind of lean a little bit to like, well, Jonathan ain't doing so bad here and there and what, but this just shows the level of his entitlement and the level of his lack of compassion and the level of his ignorance, in my opinion.
Well, let me build on what you said. I think that Jonathan Martin's comments should be condemned. I mean, I think that they just completely lack compassion. Let me give you some numbers. Basically, in the U.S., 20 out of every 10,000 people are homeless. That comes out to about, 650,000, 700,000 people who each night are homeless. That said, I also see the point of this type of bill. This type of bill, believe it or not, is also being pushed in Texas, Georgia, and Oregon. And I believe when it comes to the Oregon one, the Supreme Court's going to weigh in later this year on whether or not this violates the Eighth Amendment. I like where Jonathan's head is at in terms of this, because I think the counter argument to this, Joe, is very simple, is that Floridians, as we've seen in West Palm, Miami-Dade, Brevard County, they've passed something similar. And I think the fear at the same time is that you don't want it to become like a cesspool in Portland, Oregon, or San Francisco with people defecating in the streets. And I think that is where I can't read Jonathan's mind, but I know from other people that have pushed similar bills in other states, that's where they're coming from. But why can't we do both, where we are actually protecting our public places, but we're also looking out for the homeless rather than just being flat heartless?
Well, and it's hard for a person like me to see these elected officials going out to these big dinners that are $500-600 a plate and different things. Take your ass over to Wendy's and get you a bowl of chili, and instead of taking these big stipends like we've seen in Cape Coral and other places, why do that? And if you really have a concern about the homeless people, you don't have to live the lifestyle you live. You can help out. Now, I'm a capitalist. I understand. But you can't, because you've been successful, just totally eliminate the humanity in other people that might have just had a bad, hard road. A woman got divorced. Her kids and her out on the street living in a car. And she probably ain't got gas to get to whatever location she needs to get the permit. Then this woman's separated from her children. That's a whole new ball game. And I don't agree with what Jonathan Martin's doing about the permit. I do think that we need to have resources that can help to, even in the short time, just in the short term, help these people to get on with their life and give them a chance to come back to being somewhat at least in the lower income or housing or whatever it takes. But look, I've talked to a lot of people. Once you get to that level, the government don't care, and the length of time it takes for those people to get help is astronomical. You can't be homeless today and get help within a month. I'm just telling you, it don't work that way.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. There needs to be more empathy and concern about this problem. That doesn't mean we do exactly what the Democrats say, which is always throw money at the problem. We do need to find a way to do it. And look, I think that what should be mandated, if you're up in Tallahassee, is that every legislature should have to work in a food pantry at least one day each month. They need to be able to see the good, bad, and otherwise that goes on in our state. Now think about that one for a second.
I agree, Ford. I just don't think. I think they lose their humanity when they become in public office, and it's sad. You gotta. I don't wish nothing bad on nobody, but what happens is something happens, and maybe after they're passed away, one of their kids or grandkids is faced with this. Do they want them being subjected to arrest and everything else for not having a permit?
Well, that's right. This very easily could be you or a family member, and that is why, even if that is for selfish reasons, why you should be showing empathy, because by the luck of a coin flip, that could have been you. And I think that people need to recognize that. You're absolutely right. I mean, again, just because we see a problem doesn't mean that we shouldn't realize that very well could be us too.
Well, I want to move on to I want to talk about Adam Botana. And people know my feeling about Adam Botana, and I don't need to express that here. But he's pushing to destroy one of Fort Myers Beach's last estuaries, proposing House Bill 957 to revise the boundaries of the Estero Bay Aquatic Preserve. Now, this will literally kill the long-time local shrimping industry, as it seems to lend to creating a push-off destination for commercial cruise ships. Adam Botana, if you don't know what he looks like somebody that's don't care about nothing but how to make more money. Now, I'm really upset. I know that some of the property owners on that back bay will make money, but you are destroying our ecosystem by doing this. He's talking about going down 300 foot. That's just going to destroy that back bay.
And what do you think that's eventually going to be used for, Joe?
It's going to be used for commercial cruise ship push-off. Now, that does bring more money to the economy of Fort Myers Beach. But look at Fort Myers Beach. And I heard somebody say, with Margaritaville, the beach is going to get back to where it once was. It's never going to be what it once was. I grew up down on Fort Myers Beach. It was the heyday of my life. And when, even back then, we were packed. But we were packed with local families that could afford to come to Fort Myers Beach. It was an affordable vacation spot. Fort Myers Beach is no longer, and from this point forward, will never be an affordable family vacation spot to the average Floridian.
Yeah, and you and I often talk about this. What I miss and will never see again in Fort Myers Beach is that honky tonk culture and character. And I told you a long time ago when we had the hurricane and all this happened, and you were trying to rescue people, this, that, and the other. And I told you flat out what this sadly was going to become, Fort Myers Beach. It was going to become Mercado North. And that is exactly what is about to happen. It is going to be a money-making operation for certain landowners. And essentially, it's not going to be for locals to go on vacation or for Floridians. It's going to be for everybody else but the people of Southwest Florida.
Well, in 2010 or 11, I fought the city on this personally, and I won. I fought the city on trying to make Fort Myers Beach more like a Naples Beach or a resort beach that catered to the wealthy. I fought that. And luckily, I mean, my voice was heard and enough people. Matter of fact, one of the council members' wives told her husband that she didn't vote with me, that she was divorcing him. And that's a true story. And I got it passed, but I knew once that there was a change in the regime on Fort Myers Beach. It was always going to work that way. I think that right now we have people that don't care about Florida. They don't care about what makes Florida paradise. They care about commercializing it. And I'm not against growth, but I am against destroying that small little stretch of island that has been my home paradise for years and years upon years. More so, I've been here longer than a lot of people's even thought about being here. And so it bothers me that that a bunch of Northerners come down here and throw a bunch of money at something that is not what Floridians really wanted.
Well said, my friend. I got nothing to add. I think you pretty much said it all there.
I also want to talk about, in my last story, I want to say that I do have a couple announcements, but first I want to talk about how Cape Coral Council still rejects the public outcry over the stipend. State representatives and the very cabal that have endorsed or appointed many of these council members have expressed opposition. But the mayor and several other board members' sense of entitlement has led to many of them blatantly ignoring the voters, and they're ignoring the establishment. And look, the people that are coming out against this, and I don't think the representatives are coming out against this, they wouldn't have came out if I hadn't the very first, and I know a lot of people want to take credit, and I don't care about credit. The very first meeting of this stipend, I packed that house personally and had people come in to reject this stipend. Well, there's several others that wants to take claim, and I think Mike Gilombardo, who's another one that wants to take claim for trying to get this stuff stopped. They're trying to recall the mayor and then move on. The truth is, the only reason you see people like Gilombardo and them coming out is because I showed the public outcry of how bad these people look. And it just shows you the stipend. They got their checks. Here's Mayor Gunther's check right here, his direct deposit. Look at the totals here, and it's just incredible. And he don't care. We've got them now. There's already a system set in place for them to get reimbursed. And when this all come out, this is because they need reimbursements for travel, things like that. They're all issued a Visa card. Not only are they issued a Visa card, now they got a stipend. Then I turn around and look, and John Gunther, and he's not the only one, but he's probably got the highest number. We paid, or the citizens of Cape Coral paid almost $1,000 for his dry cleaning, which he was reimbursed for over $1,000 in dry cleaning that went back to October 1st, 2023, which is the same time that they're going to start paying them for the stipend. How do you have it both ways? And what I want to see, and I'm going to do a public records request, is to what are they spending on that company Visa card? Is that not something? Are we not already reimbursing them, or that if they don't use the credit card, they simply put in there? But yet we're going to give the mayor $5,000 extra a month that he ain't accounting for, and this council members $3,330 a month. That, why aren't they putting that on their credit card? Why are they still turning receipts for dry cleaning for it?
Well, look, it seems. Well, let me start at the beginning. You do deserve credit about this. You've been texting me long before you were going to go to the meeting, telling me how you were going to do this. And if you hadn't brought the spotlight on it, Jan LaBar, nobody would have known about this. Okay, nobody would have known about the sort of self-dealing that's been going on with the Cape Coral City Council. Now, I think you raise a great question about this Visa card. If you can charge certain things on this Visa card and the city of Cape Coral's paying for it, why do you also need a stipend? It seems like it's double dealing. I think you need to get to the heart of that before I can actually make that allegation valid. But it seems to me that you're already getting a stipend. If you're getting a credit card that's paying for it, why do you need the stipend? Maybe it's because you just want money to spend on other items that you didn't want to put on that credit card.
Well, this is going to be toward the end of the show, and I want to tell a few people. I want to tell the people about a few things that's going this coming week. On Tuesday, there is going to be a friendly protest, and it's going to be done against some of the things that are still being exposed in our school with Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ and things like that. Now, that was set out to just be a peaceful flag wave. I have just got information that the Purple People Eaters, who are a bunch of over-the-hill old hags that don't have children in the district, they show up to complain about vulgarity in books and everything else that should be allowed. I don't feel like they have your children's best interest in mind. They've decided to protest in opposition. You need to be out there. That's coming up this Tuesday, but right before the school board meeting. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to give everybody a little heads up. I have realistically dwelled into John Gunther's past. And some people know what I've got. Some people are begging to know what I've got. I'm going to divulge it all. I'm going to divulge John Gunther's past. He's not a good man, and I'm going to put it all out there. I'm going to bring all the receipts with me, and I will tell you that I'm going to present them to the state attorney, and then any media group, I'm going to have an envelope that I will hand you with what I've found, because apparently TM Strategies does not vet their candidates. And then I want each one of the establishment politicians who endorsed this greedy and, from what I've found, violent mayor, I want them to tell me their opinion after I put this information out. Because I can honestly say, if me or you had done some of the things that I found out in these police reports for, there ain't no chance in hell we would hold a public office.
Well, I'll be watching like everyone else. You're going to throw down the gauntlet. I'm eager to see it. I'm sure you're going to bring the receipts. So I'll bring the popcorn and can't wait to see it.
Like I said, right out of John Gunther's closet, we're going to show what happened in Anne Arundel County, Mr. Gunther, and you know what I'm talking about. So, Ford, I appreciate you joining me. I hope you have a good weekend. Also, folks, this weekend is the Everglades Seafood Festival. If anybody of you going down there, it's a great event. Sunday's looking a little treacherous. I think we're going to go down. The family's going to go down there on Saturday. We'll be there early. And for a good part, if you want to meet with me, I will be there at the Everglades Seafood Festival in Everglades City, Florida. And I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Ford, as always, I appreciate you coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. We love you, Florida. For Fort O'Connell and Smoking Joe, we'll see you soon.